Summer Lawson's hands were steady as she signed the contract that would either save her future or destroy it completely. She looked up at the man across the glass desk. Dan Pierce, CEO of Pierce Empire, one of the most powerful tech and real estate conglomerates in the country. His silver hair and sharp suit radiated authority, but his eyes held something else. Desperation. "You understand what you're agreeing to, Miss Lawson." Dan's voice was controlled, but Summer heard the edge underneath. "My son isn't just difficult, he's a nightmare," Summer finished calmly, setting down her pen. "According to every tabloid in the city, street racing, club fights, cycling through women like they're disposable, publicly defying you at board meetings. I've done my research, Mr. Pierce." Dan's jaw tightened. Then you understand why most professionals have refused this position." "I'm not most professionals." "No." Dan leaned back, studying her with those calculating eyes that had built an empire. "You're not, which is exactly why I chose you." Summer kept her expression neutral, but inside her pulse quickened. This was it. The moment she'd been working toward for 5 years, ever since she discovered the truth about her parents' deaths. 6 months, Dan continued, "Marry my son. Get him to show up to work consistently. Clean up his public image. Prove to the board he can be trusted with responsibility. Do this and you'll be CEO of Pierce Digital, with a $10 million signing bonus. And 20% equity, and if I fail you won't." Dan's confidence was absolute. "I've been watching you for 8 months, Miss Lawson. The Harrison Corporation turnaround. That CEO was notorious, arrogant, impossible, refused to listen to anyone. You had him eating out of your hand within 3 months. The company's stock tripled." Summer's eyebrow lifted slightly. "You've been watching me for 8 months. I don't make billion-dollar decisions lightly." Dan pulled out a tablet, slid it across the glass. "Surface, your career trajectory is remarkable. Orphaned at 15, raised by your grandmother in a 2-bedroom apartment in the Bronx, full scholarship to Columbia Business School, graduated top of your class, became the youngest senior consultant at Morrison & Associates. You've turned around 6 failing companies in 3 years. You don't intimidate easily, you don't give up, and most importantly, you don't fall for charm or money." He paused, his gaze sharp. "My son needs someone who can't bought, seduced or scared away. Someone who will see past his deliberately terrible behavior to the man underneath. Someone who will make him want to be better." Summer's throat tightened. If only Dan knew the real reason she was here. If only he knew that his careful research had missed the most important detail. Summer Lawson wasn't here to save Cornell Pierce. She was here to destroy the entire Pierce family. But first she had to play the part. "When do I meet him?" Summer asked. Dan checked his watch. "Right now he should be." The office doors burst open with a bang that made Dan's assistant jump, and Summer Lawson got her first real look at Cornell Pierce. The tabloids hadn't done him justice. Cornell Pierce was 62, of lean, powerful muscle wrapped in a black leather jacket and designer jeans that fit like sin. His light brown skin was flawless. His face a perfect combination of sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw with deliberate stubble and lips that looked made for trouble. Long dreads with the sides of his head cleanly shaved fell past his shoulders, some tied back, others loose around his face. A silver nose ring gleamed on his left nostril, matching the multiple piercings climbing up both ears. Industrial bars, hoops, studs that caught the light when he moved. When he shrugged off his jacket to toss it carelessly on a chair, Summer caught a glimpse of black ink. The head of a soaring Chinese dragon tattoo that started at his collarbone and disappeared beneath his black t-shirt, clearly covering his entire chest. He pulled a cigarette from behind his ear as unlit, rolling it between his fingers with practiced ease. And when his eyes, deep brown, almost black, framed by thick lashes, locked onto Summer, she felt the impact like a physical thing. He was beautiful. Dangerously, devastatingly beautiful in a way that screamed rebellion and wealth in equal measure. And he looked absolutely furious. "Really, Dad?" Cornell's voice was deep, smooth, with an edge like expensive whiskey and broken glass. "You couldn't even wait until I was in the room before signing away my life." "Cornell." Dan stood, his tone firm. "You're late, I'm always late, it's part of my charm." Cornell's gaze slid to Summer and she felt it like a touch, assessing, dismissive, predatory. One of his dreads fell forward as he tilted his head. "So you're the latest attempt to fix me." Summer stood and meeting his stare without flinching. Her short curly hair with fringes framing her face stayed Perfectly in place despite her racing heart. I'm Summer Lawson, your new boss. Cornell's eyebrow, the one with the small slit scar through it, lifted. The corner of his mouth curved into a smirk that made her stomach do something complicated. My boss, that's cute, not cute, contractual. Summer kept her voice level, professional. As of today, I'm CEO of Pierce Digital. You report to me. I don't report to anyone, sweetheart. Don't call me sweetheart. Cornell moved closer, deliberately, invading her space, using his height to intimidate. Up close, she could smell expensive cologne mixed with leather and a hint of tobacco. His piercings glinted as he leaned down slightly. What should I call you then? Gold digger, social climber, our daddy's latest pawn. Summer tilted her chin up, refusing to back down even though her heart was hammering. You can call me Miss Lawson or ma'am. Your choice. Cornell laughed, a dark, rich sound that sent shivers down her spine. His dreads shifted as he threw his head back. Ma'am, oh, this is going to be fun. Cornell, Dan's voice cut through the tension. Sit down, we need to discuss, no need. Cornell finally put the cigarette between his lips, still unlit like a prop. Let me guess, you two worked out some deal where she pretends to manage me. I pretend to cooperate and everyone gets what they want. She gets money and a fancy title. You get to tell the board you're handling me and he looked up, the unlit cigarette bobbing as he spoke, his dark eyes meeting Summer's with an intensity that stole her breath. I get a beautiful woman following me around, pretending she's not just here for the paycheck. Same story, different face. Actually, Summer said calmly, there's one more detail you're missing. Oh, enlighten me. Summer pulled a second document from her bag and set it on the glass desk. The marriage contract. The room went silent. Cornell pulled the cigarette from his lips slowly. Excuse me. Dan cleared his throat. The board requires stability. A marriage would show you're capable of commitment, responsibility. Absolutely not. Cornell's voice went cold, his hand crushing the cigarette. I'm not marrying some stranger for your corporate games. It's not a request, Dan said firmly. The board votes on your position in 3 weeks. If you want any chance of remaining on the executive team, I don't give a damn about the executive team. Then think about your trust fund. Dan's tone hardened. Your inheritance, your cars, your penthouse, your entire lifestyle. All of it is contingent on your cooperation with this arrangement. Cornell went very still. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. You're blackmailing me, I'm saving you. Dan's expression showed genuine pain from yourself. You've been destroying yourself for 5 years, Cornell, since he stopped, jaw tight. I won't watch you waste your life anymore. Something flickered across Cornell's face. Raw, painful, quickly hidden. But Summer saw it, saw the grief underneath the anger. Then the cold mask slammed back down. Cornell turned those dark eyes on Summer, his piercings catching the light. Looked at her like she was something he was deciding whether to crush or ignore. So you're willing to marry a complete stranger for money and a CEO position. Guess Dad was wrong about you being different. I'm willing to do a job, Summer replied evenly. This is a business arrangement. 6 months as outlined in the contract. After that, we go our separate ways. You get your inheritance and freedom. I get what I was promised. No one has to pretend this is anything more than what it is. And what is it? A mutually beneficial transaction. Cornell studied her for a long moment. Summer fought the urge to fidget under that intense stare. Finally, he moved so fast she barely registered it, plucking the contract from the desk and scanning it. His dreads fell forward, hiding his face. 6 months, he read aloud. Now live together to maintain appearance of real marriage, attend public events together. Support each other's professional endeavors. He looked up, that dangerous smirk back. Interesting, no mention of sleeping arrangements. Summer's face heated, but she kept her voice cool. That's because those arrangements will be separate. This is a professional contract, not a romantic one. Pity. Cornell's gaze dragged over her in a way that made her skin feel too tight. You're actually gorgeous when you're not trying to manage me. Mr. Pierce, if we're getting married, sweetheart, you should probably call me Cornell. He grabbed a pen from Dan's desk and signed the contract with a flourish, his tattooed chest flexing beneath his shirt. They're happy. I've agreed to be legally shackled to a woman who thinks she can fix me with spreadsheets and inspirational speeches. I don't think I can fix you, Summer said. I think you can fix yourself. I'm just here to make sure you do. Cornell leaned in close, so close she could see every piercing, every detail of his face, smell the tobacco on his breath. Me make something very clear, Miss Lawson. I don't need fixing, I don't need managing, and I sure as hell don't need some ambitious little girl playing savior for a paycheck. You can have your contract, you can have your title, but don't for 1 second think you'll actually change anything about me. He straightened, pulled out a lighter, and finally lit the cigarette that had been waiting between his fingers. Took a long drag. Weddings in 3 days. My assistant will send you the details. Try not to fall in love with me before then. I'd hate to break your heart before we even start. Then he was gone, slamming the door behind him with enough force to rattle the windows, smoke trailing in his wake. Summer slowly released the breath she'd been holding, that Dan said quietly, went better than expected. Summer looked at him incredulously. Better, he signed, that's more than I hoped for. Dan's expression was unreadable. My son is complicated, the cruelty is armor. Underneath is none of my business. Summer interrupted gently but firmly. This is a job, Mr. Pierce. I'll do what's required, but I'm not a therapist or a miracle worker. I'm a business strategist, of course. But Dan looked at her with something that might have been hope. The wedding will be small, immediate family only. After that, you'll move into his penthouse in Manhattan. My assistant will handle all the logistics. Summer nodded, already mentally preparing for the battle ahead. She could do this. 6 months of playing house with an arrogant, cruel, devastatingly attractive billionaire with dreads and piercings and tattoos who looked at her like she was both prey and a puzzle he couldn't solve. 6 months to get close to the Pierce family, to access their files, to find the evidence that would prove they were responsible for her parents' deaths. 6 months to destroy them all, starting with Cornell Pierce. Summer just signed a contract with the most dangerous man in Manhattan. If you think she's playing with fire, comment, be careful, Summer. And subscribe because Cornell Pierce is about to turn her world upside down. 3 days later, the wedding took place. The courthouse was cold and impersonal, exactly what Summer expected from a marriage of convenience. She stood in the waiting room wearing a simple cream dress she'd bought off the rack. Her short curly hair with its fringe styled neatly, the small ponytail at the back giving her a professional but feminine look. Minimal makeup. This wasn't a wedding, no point in pretending, you look beautiful. Summer turned to find a young man in an expensive suit, 30s, handsome in a refined way that was nothing like Cornell's dangerous edge. He extended his hand with a warm smile. Julian Pierce, Cornell's older brother, CFO of Pierce Empire. His handshake was firm, professional. I wanted to introduce myself before the ceremony. Welcome to the family, Summer Lawson. She studied him carefully. Now Dan had mentioned Julian in passing. The good son, the one who did everything right while Cornell did everything wrong. I have to say, Julian continued, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. You're braver than most, agreeing to marry my brother, it's just business. Of course, Julian's tone suggested he didn't believe her for a second. Still, Cornell can be challenging, if you ever need someone to talk to, someone who understands how difficult he can be. He pulled out a business card. My door is always open. Something about the offer felt off. But before Summer could analyze it, the door opened and Cornell walked in. He'd traded the leather jacket for a tailored black suit that fit him like a weapon. Sharp, dangerous, expensive. His long dreads were pulled back in a neat half-up style, so showing off his piercings and the clean-shaved sides of his head. The nose ring gleamed against his light brown skin. The suit jacket couldn't quite hide the dragon tattoo that peeked above his collar. He looked like Sin in a suit. Their eyes met across the room. And Summer's breath caught. Brother. Cornell's voice was pleasant, but his eyes were cold as they flicked to Julian. Trying to poach my bride before the ceremony, how considerate, just being welcoming, Julian replied smoothly, since you're incapable of basic courtesy. Courtesy is overrated. Cornell's gaze moved to Summer and that dangerous smirk appeared. His hand went to his jacket pocket, reaching for a cigarette out of habit, then stopped. Ready to become Mrs. Pierce, sweetheart. I'm keeping my name, even better. Wouldn't want you getting too attached. He offered his arm in a mockery of politeness. Shall we? Summer ignored the arm and walked past him toward the ceremony room. Behind her, she heard Julian's quiet laugh and Cornell's muttered curse. Good. Let him know she wouldn't play the obedient wife. The ceremony itself took less than 10 minutes. Dan stood as witness, his expression unreadable. The officiant droned through the standard vows, with all the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. Do you, Cornell Alexander Pierce, take Summer Marie Lawson to be your lawfully wedded wife? Cornell's dark eyes locked onto hers. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered in their depths, something that looked almost like curiosity. Then it was gone. "I do," he said, his voice flat. "And do you, Summer Marie Lawson, take Cornell Alexander Pierce to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Summer thought of her parents, of the evidence she needed, of the justice she'd been chasing for 5 years. "I do, you may kiss the bride." Cornell's eyebrow, the one with the scar, lifted. "That wasn't in the contract. It's traditional," the officiant said, looking uncomfortable. "We're not a traditional couple," but Cornell stepped closer anyway, bringing that expensive cologne and dangerous energy with him. He leaned down, his dreads falling forward slightly, his lips hovering just above hers. "Brace yourself, wife, I'd hate for you to swoon." Then his mouth was on hers. Summer had expected it to be perfunctor, a quick press of lips to satisfy the officiant. She was wrong. Cornell kissed her like he was trying to prove something, like he was testing her. Yea, his lips were firm, skilled, moving against hers with just enough pressure to make her knees weak. One hand came up to cup her jaw, his touch surprisingly gentle despite the intensity of the kiss. She could feel the cool metal of his rings against her skin. Summer's hands instinctively gripped his suit jacket to steady herself. She felt his smile against her mouth just before he pulled away. "There," Cornell said, his voice pitched low enough that only she could hear. "Now everyone thinks this is real. You're welcome." Summer's face burned. She wanted to slap him. She wanted to kiss him again just to wipe that smug look off his face. Instead, she smiled sweetly. "Thank you for the performance, very convincing." Something flashed in his eyes, surprise, annoyance. But before she could identify it, he stepped back, the putting professional distance between them. "Congratulations," Dan said, his voice thick with emotion he was clearly trying to hide. "I hope you'll both save the speech, Dad." Cornell's hand went to his pocket again, cigarette habit, then stopped when he seemed to remember where he was. "I have a race tonight. I'll be home late." "You have a wife now," Dan said tightly. "You should spend your wedding night doing exactly what I want, which is racing." Cornell glanced at Summer. "Unless my new bride wants to join me, I could use a good luck charm." "I have work to do," Summer replied coolly. "Getting up to speed on Pierce Digital's operations." "Of course you do." Cornell's smirk was sharp. "Wouldn't want to waste time on frivolous things like getting to know your husband. See you at home, wife or not. I really don't care either way." He left without another word. Dan sighed heavily. "I apologize for my son's behavior. He's exactly as advertised." Summer finished. "It's fine, Mr. Pierce. I knew what I was signing up for." But as she watched Cornell's retreating figure, his dread swaying with each step, piercings glinting, she couldn't help but wonder if that was actually true. Because that kiss, that single searing kiss, had felt nothing like a business arrangement. And the way he'd looked at her just for a second before his walls slammed back up. Summer shook herself. Focus, this was a job. Cornell Pierce was a means to an end, nothing more. Summer arrived at Cornell's penthouse in Manhattan at 8:00 p.m., her belongings limited to 2 suitcases and a laptop bag. A doorman who looked former military helped her with the bags, now his expression carefully neutral. "Mrs. Pierce," he said respectfully. "Mr. Pierce left instructions for you. Top floor." The elevator ride felt endless. Summer used the time to center herself, to remember why she was here. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Summer's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Manhattan skyline in all its glittering glory. The space was enormous, modern, sleek, with dark wood floors, leather furniture, and artwork that screamed money. Everything was expensive and tasteful, and it was completely empty of personal touches. No photos, no mementos, nothing that suggested someone actually lived here. "He doesn't like clutter." Summer spun to find a man in his 50s dressed in a neat suit standing by the kitchen. He had kind eyes and a patient smile. Near Brooks, he introduced himself, Mr. Pierce's driver, and well, I suppose you could say friend, though he'd never admit it. "I'm here to show you around and make sure you're settled." "Thank you," Summer said, genuinely grateful. "I wasn't sure if anyone would be here. Mr. Pierce doesn't trust easily, but he's not completely heartless." Brooks gestured toward the hallway. "Your room is this way. He was very specific that you should have your own space." Of course he was. Brooks led her down a corridor to a bedroom that was enormous. King bed, ensuite bathroom with a luxury tub, walk-in closet. "Mr. Pierce's room is at the other end of the penthouse," Brooks explained. "You shouldn't run into each other unless you want to. Kitchen is fully stocked. Housekeeper comes 3 times a week if you need anything." My number is programmed into the house phone. Where is Cornell now? Summer asked, trying to sound casual. Street race in Brooklyn, underground. Circuit. Brooks's expression turned disapproving. He does this when he's stressed. Drives like he's trying to outrun his demons. Does it work? Never has yet. Brooks moved toward the door, then paused. Miss Lawson, or should I say Mrs. Pierce, may I speak frankly, please? Mr. Pierce isn't the monster he pretends to be. He's hurt deeply and he uses cruelty to keep people at a distance because everyone he's ever loved has either blamed him or left him. Brooks's eyes were sad. I know this is a business arrangement. I know you're here for the job, but if you could be kind, even when he doesn't deserve it, he needs kindness more than he needs anything else. Summer's throat tightened. I'll do my best. After Brooks left, Summer unpacked methodically, setting up her laptop on the desk in her room. She pulled up the files her best friend Nadia had compiled. Years of research on Pierce Empire, looking for evidence of the construction company negligence that had killed her parents. She was so focused on the screen that she didn't hear the front door open, didn't hear the footsteps approaching, didn't realize she wasn't alone until a voice spoke from her doorway. Working on our wedding night. I'm wounded. Summer jumped, spinning to find Cornell leaning against her doorframe. He changed from the suit to jeans and a black t-shirt that showed off the full glory of the Chinese dragon tattoo covering his chest. The creature's scales detailed in black and grey ink, its head near his collarbone body. Coiling down across his pecs, a tail disappearing at his waistband. His dreads hung loose now, piercings glinting in the low light, and there was a cut on his cheekbone, blood dried at the corner. A cigarette dangled from his lips, lit this time, smoke curling upward. You're bleeding, Summer said before she could stop herself, then her nose wrinkled, and smoking in the house. Cornell touched the cut absently, occupational hazard of street racing. He took another drag, watching. Her reaction, the smoking bother you? It's disgusting, Summer said honestly, and terrible for your health. Good thing my health isn't your concern, but something flickered in his eyes. He moved into a room anyway, bringing smoke with him. What are you working on? First day strategies for taming the wild beast. Summer quickly closed her laptop, eye-waving the smoke away from her face. Budget reviews for Pierce Digital. Your father gave me full access to the financials. How thrilling. Cornell's gaze swept over her room. Taking in her sparse belongings, you travel light, I don't need much. Clearly, he moved closer and Summer fought the urge to back up. The cigarette smoke made her eyes water slightly. Tell me, Summer, can I call you Summer or should I stick with wife? What's your real angle here? I don't have an angle. Everyone has an angle. He was so close now she could smell leather and smoke mixing with his cologne. His tattooed chest was at her eye level, the dragon seeming to move in the low light. My father offered you money and power. You accepted. That makes you like every other person who's tried to fix me. The only difference is you're smarter about hiding your true motives. Summer met his gaze steadily, trying not to cough from the smoke. Maybe I don't have true motives. Maybe I'm exactly what I appear to be, a professional doing a job. Nobody's exactly what they appear to be. Cornell took another drag, the ember glowing. His free hand came up, his fingers barely brushing a curl from her. Fringe, the touch was feather light, but Summer felt it like electricity. Especially not you. What's that supposed to mean? You're too calm, too collected. Most people meeting me for the first time are either terrified or trying too hard to impress me. You're neither. You look at me like you're solving a puzzle. His dark eyes searched her face. What are you really after, Summer Lawson? Summer's heart was racing, but she kept her voice level. Exactly what the contract says. 6 months, then we both walk away. You're lying. You don't know me well enough to know if I'm lying. Cornell's lips curved into that dangerous smirk around the cigarette. Then I guess I'll have to get to know you better. Can't have my wife keeping secrets from me. We're not a real couple. Tell that to the marriage license. He stepped back, that brief moment of intensity shuddered. Took one more drag, then seemed to notice Summer's discomfort with the smoke. Something crossed his face, too quick to read. Fair warning, I'm not going to make this easy for you. I'm going to be late, difficult and generally a nightmare. I'm going to do everything I can to make you quit. Why? Because you will eventually. Everyone does. Something painful flickered across his face before the cruel mask slammed back. Might as well get it over with sooner rather than later. Save us both the pretense. I don't quit, Summer said firmly. Ever. We'll see. Cornell moved toward the door, cigarette still burning then. Paused. Oh, and Summer, lock your door at night. Wouldn't want you getting any ideas about consummating this marriage. I'm not that desperate. He left before she could respond. Summer stood there, her heart pounding, anger and something else, something dangerous curling in her chest. She opened her window, waving out the lingering smoke, her nose still wrinkled in disgust. Cornell Pierce was exactly as advertised, cruel, arrogant, impossible, but Brooks was right about one thing. There was something underneath all that armor, something hurt and hidden and absolutely fascinating. Summer shook herself. No, she wasn't here to psychoanalyze him or fix him or save him. She was here for revenge, and she couldn't let one devastatingly attractive, infuriating man with dreads and tattoos and piercings distract her from that. Even if his kiss was still burning on her lips, even if the challenge in his eyes made her want to prove him wrong. Even if every instinct she had was screaming that Cornell Pierce was the most dangerous thing she'd ever encountered, and not for the reasons she expected. Cornell Pierce just declared war on his own wife. If you think Summer needs to run before she gets burned, drop a danger in the comments and subscribe, because tomorrow Cornell is going to test exactly how far he can push her. And he's about to find out Summer doesn't break easily. The first morning, Summer woke to pounding on her bedroom door. Miss Lawson, it was Brooks. His usually calm voice edged with panic. Mr. Pierce won't get up. The board meeting starts in 30 minutes. Summer checked her phone. 7:30 a.m. She'd set 3 alarms for Cornell, sent him 5 text reminders, even had Brooks leave a note on his door. She threw on clothes and stormed down the hall to Cornell's room. The door was locked. Mr. Pierce. Summer pounded on the door. The meeting starts at 8. Your father is introducing me to the board. You need to be there. Silence. Cornell. She pounded harder. I know you can hear me. The door opened so suddenly Summer almost fell forward. Cornell stood there in nothing but black boxer briefs. In his long dreads, a wild mess around his face, piercings glinting, the dragon tattoo covering his chest in full display. His eyes were bloodshot and he wry of whiskey. What part of I don't do morning meetings wasn't clear. His voice was rough with sleep and alcohol. The part where it's in your contract, Summer said through gritted teeth. Get dressed now. No. Excuse me. Cornell leaned against the doorframe, all lean muscle and deliberate insolence. I said no. I was out until 4:00 a.m. I'm going back to sleep. You want to play CEO? Go play without me. Your father specifically requested. My father can go to hell. The venom in Cornell's voice was shocking. And you can join him. I'm not your trained monkey, sweetheart. I don't perform on command. He started to close the door. Summer jammed her foot in it. You signed a contract. You agreed to support my professional endeavors. This meeting is crucial. Then I guess you'll have to be crucial without me. His eyes were cold, cruel. Now move your foot before I move it for you. You're really going to sabotage my first board meeting on purpose? Yep. Cornell's smirk was vicious. Welcome to your new job, wife. Hope that paycheck is worth it. He slammed the door. Summer stood there shaking with fury. Brooks appeared at her elbow. Miss Lawson, perhaps we should know. Summer pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. If he wants to play games, fine, but he's going to that meeting. She made a call. Hello, is this Apex Security? I need an emergency transport. Uncooperative client. Needs to be at Pierce Tower in 25 minutes. Yet I don't care what state he's in when he arrives. An hour later, Summer stood at the head of the conference table setting up her presentation while Dan made small talk with the board members. The door opened. Every head turned. 2 massive security guards entered, and between them Cornell Pierce in navy blue silk pajamas, his dreads still wild, barefoot, looking absolutely murderous. The room went dead silent. What? Cornell said, his voice deadly calm. The actual hell, you're late, Summer said pleasantly. Please take a seat. You hired security to drag me out of my own home in my pajamas. You refused to attend. I ensured you did. Sit down, please. Cornell's dark eyes promised retribution, but with every board member watching, he had no choice. He sprawled in a chair, then his tattooed chest visible where his pajama top hung open, and stared at Summer with pure hatred. Shall we begin? Summer said as if nothing unusual had happened. Dan looked like he was trying not to laugh. The board members were clearly shocked. Summer started her presentation. 15 minutes in, Cornell's phone rang loud. He pulled it out, looked at the screen and answered. Yeah, Mr. Pierce, Dan said tightly. We're in a meeting. I can see that, Dad. Cornell leaned back, his piercings catching the light. What's up tonight? Yeah, I'm free. The underground circuit in Brooklyn, count me in. Cornell, Summer said quietly, her voice like steel. End the call or what? Cornell's smirk was vicious. You'll have your security goons drag me out. Oh wait, you already did that. Every eye in the room was on them. I'll give you 3 seconds, Summer said. To do what, sweetheart? Summer pulled out her phone, typed something, hit send. Building's fire alarm erupted. Chaos, executives standing confused, Dan looking baffled. What? One executive started. Emergency evacuation protocol, Summer said calmly, gathering her materials. Everyone out, building procedure. Such a shame, we'll have to reschedule. She looked directly at Cornell. Maybe next time there won't be interruptions. She walked out, the room sat frozen. Then Cornell started laughing. Real, genuine, shocked laughter. I'll be damned, he said, still in his pajamas. Barefoot in a boardroom full of men in suits, she actually triggered the fire alarm. Dan's expression was caught between fury and admiration. Julian, from his seat at the far end, looked furious. Later that day, Summer was reviewing contracts when Cornell appeared in her office doorway. He'd changed. Black jeans, black t-shirt showing his dragon tattoo leather jacket. His dreads were pulled back in a low ponytail. He held 2 expensive coffee cups. Peace offering, he said, setting one on her desk. From that cafe. You like cream, 2 sugars. Summer looked at the cup suspiciously. How do you know how I take my coffee? I pay attention when I want to. Cornell sat in the chair across from her, uninvited. That was bold, the fire alarm. That was me doing my job, by committing several felonies, by showing you I don't back down. Summer met his eyes. You deliberately sabotaged that meeting. I sabotage all meetings. It's my brand. It's childish. It's effective. Cornell took a sip of his coffee. Blackened, she noticed, but I have to admit nobody's ever fought back quite like that before. Most people just report me to my father and clutch their pearls. I'm not most people. No, Cornell said, his dark eyes studying her. You're really not. Something shifted in the air between them. The pajamas was a nice touch, Summer said dryly. Very professional. You had me kidnapped from my own home. I thought I'd lean into the absurdity. His lip curved. Did you see Henderson's face? Thought he was stroke. Your father wasn't amused. My father is never amused by anything I do. The bitterness in Cornell's voice was sharp. He stopped being amused 5 years ago when I took his favorite child. Summer's breath caught. Took his favorite child. Cornell, what do you mean, save it? He stood abruptly. I'm not here for therapy. I'm here to say, good game today. You've got guts. I can respect that. He left the coffee and walked out. Summer sat frozen, staring at the space where he'd been, her mind racing. Took his favorite child. Not lost, not when he lost. Took like he'd done something, like he was responsible. Summer's detective training kicked in immediately. She pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. Cornell Pierce family tragedy. The search results loaded. Pierce family mourns loss of daughter 17. Lily Pierce dies in tragic car accident. Cornell Pierce, 21, driver in fatal crash that killed sister. Summer's hand flew to her mouth. He'd been driving. His sister died, and his father blamed him. Took his favorite child. God, he thought he'd killed her. I'd believed it so deeply. He'd used those exact words, not lost her when she died, but took like murder. Summer scrolled through article after article. Photos of a beautiful girl with her whole life ahead of her. Photos of Cornell, younger without the piercings, hair shorter, eyes full of grief and guilt. Photos of Dan Pierce leaving the funeral. His face a mask of devastation. No wonder Cornell was the way he was. No wonder he was self-destructive, reckless, cruel. He was punishing himself for something that happened 5 years ago. Summer looked at the coffee cup he'd left, the exact way she took it, which meant he'd been paying attention even when he pretended not to care. This broken, observant, impossible man was carrying a weight that would crush most people, and for some reason he'd just shown her a glimpse of it. Summer picked up the cup, her hands shaking slightly, and took a sip. Perfect. Exactly how she liked it. She sat there for a long time staring at her computer screen filled with articles about Lily Pierce's death, trying to reconcile the cruel smoking devil-may-care man who'd just left with the brother who'd been destroyed by his sister's death. Trying to understand what it meant that he'd noticed how she took her coffee. Trying to ignore the part of her that wanted to find him and tell him it wasn't his fault. Focus, she told herself. You're here for revenge, not to save some broken billionaire with a death wish and a guilt complex. But as she closed the browser tabs and went back to reviewing Pierce Digital's budgets, she couldn't shake the image of young Cornell's face in those funeral photos, and or the way his voice had broken when he said took his favourite child, or the fact that he'd remembered how she took her coffee. Things shifted after the fire alarm incident. Cornell still skipped meetings, still showed up late, still did everything to make Summer's job difficult, but he also started doing other things. Her favourite snacks appeared in her desk drawer, the specific dark chocolate she loved, roasted almonds, the protein bars she grabbed for lunch. When she worked late, dinner would appear, always her favourites, always perfectly timed. Her office coffee maker was replaced with a high-end espresso machine. Building upgrade, the note said, but it was only in her office. And Cornell stopped smoking. She noticed it one morning when he walked past her office. No cigarette, no smell of tobacco. You've not been smoking, she said. He paused in her doorway, seemed like a waste of money. You've been smoking since you were 17, so why would you stop now? Cornell's jaw tightened. Maybe that look of disgust on your face pisses me off, and he stopped. Doesn't matter, it's none of your business, but Summer noticed his hands shook slightly. Withdrawal. Is it hard? She asked quietly. Everything's hard. Cornell's laugh was bitter, but yeah, being sober is the hardest thing I've ever done. Turns out feeling things is worse than dying slowly. Cornell, coffee's getting cold, boss. Better drink it while it's hot. He left before she could respond. She frowned after him whenever she thought she had taken a step forward with him. He made her feel she'd gone 2 steps back. Summer was slowly getting frustrated. He was proving to be a tough nut to crack, but she was going to crack him anyway. It was essential to her revenge. The nut cracked 2 weeks later. That night Summer couldn't sleep. She'd been working on the Pierce Empire investigation, torn between revenge and the growing knot of guilt in her chest. She decided to get water. That's when she heard it. A scream, raw, terrified, coming from Cornell's room. Summer didn't think. She ran, burst through his door. Cornell was in bed, thrashing, his dreads wild, his face contorted in agony. The sheets were soaked with sweat. No, he screamed. Lily. Summer rushed to his side. Cornell, wake up, she grabbed his shoulders. His skin was burning hot, his whole body shaking. Cornell, his eyes snapped open, wild, unfocused. He grabbed her wrist so hard she gasped. In Lily, it's Summer, you're having a nightmare. Cornell stared at her like he didn't recognize her, then awareness crashed back. He released her immediately, scrambling backward against the headboard. Get out, he said, his voice rough. You're burning up, you need get out. But Summer saw his hands shaking, saw the tears streaming down his face, saw the absolute terror in his eyes. I'm not leaving, she said firmly. She went to his bathroom, got a cold washcloth, came back. Cornell was sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, his tattooed back shaking. Summer sat beside him, carefully pressed the cold cloth to his neck. Cornell flinched. Don't let me help, you can't help, nobody can, try me. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then I have the same nightmare every night, the accident, but it's worse than what really happened. In the dream, Lily's alive, trapped, burning, and I can't get to her. I can hear her screaming my name, and I can't. His voice broke. I can't save her. Summer's throat tightened. How often? Every night for 5 years. Cornell laughed bitterly. That's why I used to smoke. Why I drink. Anything to avoid sleeping. Anything to avoid being sober enough to remember. Is that why you race so recklessly? You're hopping to crash. Cornell went very still. Who told you that? Nobody, I'm guessing. Summer moved the cloth to his forehead. You race on the edge like you're daring death, but you always pull back at the last second. Why? Because I'm a coward. His voice was raw. I want to die. I've wanted to die every day since Lily, but I can't actually do it. Every time I get close, every time I'm going fast enough that one wrong move would end it, I think about my mom, about how losing Lily broke her. And I can't do that to her again, even though she's passed. He looked at Summer, his eyes devastated. So I'm stuck, too much of a coward to die, too broken to actually live. Summer felt tears sliding down her own cheeks. Cornell, my father knows that I'm playing with death, that I race hopping for an accident I'm too weak to cause. That's why he hates me. Not just for ending Lily, for being too pathetic to even finish the job. Your father doesn't hate you. Cornell's laugh was broken. Yes, he does. He looks at me and sees the son who survived instead of the daughter who should have. He sees a screw-up, a disappointment, a waste of space. Ian's right, he's not right. Summer took Cornell's face in her hands, making him look at her. You're not a waste of space. You're hurt, you're grieving, but you're not worthless. You don't know me. I'm starting to. Summer wiped his tears with her thumbs, and what I see is someone who's been carrying guilt that isn't his to carry. Someone who's been punishing himself for an accident. Someone who's so desperate to escape pain that he'd rather die than feel it. Being sober is worse than dying, Cornell whispered. Then don't be sober alone. Summer pulled him into her arms. You have me now for 6 months at least. Let me help. Cornell shuddered. Then his arms came around her waist, holding on like she was the only solid thing in his world. They stayed like that for a long time. Finally, like Cornell's rough voice. Why are you doing this? Nobody wants to deal with my mess, then I guess I'm nobody. Cornell pulled back enough to look at her. His eyes were red, his face wet with tears. But something else lived there too, something that looked like hope. Summer, lie down, she said gently. I'll stay until you fall asleep. You don't have to, I know, lie down. Cornell obeyed, looking vulnerable in a way that broke Summer's heart. Summer sat beside him, her hand in his hair, gently stroking his dreads. Tell me something, Cornell said quietly. Something real, not work stuff, something about you. Like what? Anything, I need to think about something other than the nightmare, Summer thought. My mom used to make me hot chocolate every night before bed. She'd add cinnamon. I haven't been able to drink it since she died because it reminds me too much of her. Cornell's hand found hers. How did she die? Building collapse. She and my dad. I was 15. Summer's voice shook. One day they were there. The next they were gone, just gone. I'm sorry, me too. Summer squeezed his hand. But I survived like you did. And surviving is harder than people think. Yeah, Cornell breathed. It really is. His breathing slowly evened out, his grip on her hand relaxed. He fell asleep. Summer stayed watching him, her heart doing something terrifying in her chest. She was melting for him. This broken, beautiful, self-destructive man, who bought her coffee and quit smoking for her and held on to her like she was salvation, and she had no idea what to do about it. The next morning, Summer woke in Cornell's bed. She'd fallen asleep sitting up, her hands still in his. Cornell was already awake, watching her. Morning, he said quietly. Morning. Summer started to pull her hand away. He held on. Thank you for last night. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. Cornell sat up, his dragon tattoo flexing. Nobody's done that before. Stayed. Most people run when they see how broken I am. I don't run, I'm noticing. His dark eyes searched her face. Summer, why are you really here at Pierce Emperor, married to me? What do you really want? Summer's heart stopped. I told you you're lying. You've been lying since day one. But his voice wasn't angry, just sad. I can see it. In your eyes. When you look at my father, when you walk through Pierce Tower, oh, you're looking for something or someone. Her breath hitched. Cornell was way too smart. Then he let on. Cornell, you don't have to tell me, not yet. He finally released her hand. But when you're ready, I hope you will, because he stopped, got up, heading to the bathroom. Summer sat there, guilt crushing her chest. She should tell him about her parents, about the investigation, about everything. But if she did, she'd lose him. And she was starting to realize that losing Cornell Pierce might be the worst thing that could happen to her. After the nightmare, something changed between them. Cornell stopped fighting her quite so hard, started showing up to meetings, still late, still in leather instead of suits, but present. He sat in on her strategy sessions, on offering insights that were actually brilliant when he bothered to engage. He started eating dinner with her, not every night, but often enough that Summer looked forward to it. They talked, real conversations about books, music, their childhoods, their dreams. Cornell told her about Lily, how she'd loved astronomy, wanted to be an astrophysicist, had the brightest laugh he'd ever heard. Summer told him about her parents, how her dad had been a construction worker with big dreams, her mom a teacher who'd believed in everyone. They were careful not to touch the dangerous topics, his racing, her real reason for being there, the evidence gathering dust in her laptop. But the connection grew anyway. One night, Summer found Cornell in the kitchen at midnight cooking. Can't sleep, she asked. Nightmare again. He didn't look up from the vegetables he was chopping. His hands were rock steady now, 3 weeks smoke-free. Figured I'd make something. You want some? What are you making? Stir fry, extra vegetables because you like them. Summer's heart squeezed. You pay attention to what I eat. I pay attention to everything about you. Cornell finally looked up and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. It's becoming a problem. What kind of problem? He said. Down the knife, moved around the island until he was standing in front of her. Close, too close. The kind where I can't stop thinking about you, Cornell said, his voice rough. Where I buy your favorite coffee because I want to see you smile. Where I quit smoking because the look on your face when you smell it makes me feel like. Where I show up to meetings I hate because I know it matters to you. Summer's pulse raced. Cornell, the kind where I'm falling for my fake wife, and I have no idea how to stop it. The words hung between them. Summer should step back, should maintain boundaries, should remember why she was really here. Instead, she said, "What if I don't want you to stop?" Cornell's eyes darkened. "Don't say that unless you mean it." "I mean it." He moved faster than she expected. His hands came up to cup her face, his rings cool against her skin. "I'm a mess, Summer. I'm broken and self-destructive, and I have nightmares every night. I race. Because I want to die. I'm cruel because I don't know how else to keep people away. You deserve better than." Summer kissed him, cut off his self-deprecation with her lips on her hands, gripping his t-shirt, pulling him closer. Cornell made a sound. Surprise, relief, want, and kissed her back like a drowning man finding air. His hands slid into her short, curly hair, careful of her fringe, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. She tasted coffee and desperation and something sweeter. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cornell pressed his forehead to hers. "This is a terrible idea," he breathed. "Probably. This is a business arrangement. We're supposed to keep it professional. Since when do you follow rules?" Cornell laughed. Genuine and warm. Fair point. He kissed her again, slower this time, sweeter. And Summer knew with absolute certainty that she was in trouble because she'd fallen completely in love with Cornell Pierce, the man whose family she'd sworn to destroy. Note: the confrontation happened a week later at a company dinner. Dan was holding court with investors. Julian sat at his right hand, the perfect son. April was there too. A beautiful blonde woman Summer had learned was Cornell's ex, a relationship he'd ended just 2 months before Summer had met him. The way April watched Cornell now, her eyes predatory and possessive, made it clear she wasn't over him. Cornell had his arm around Summer's chair, casual, possessive. They'd been inseparable since that kiss. Summer's digital transformation strategy has already shown results, Dan was saying. Revenue is up 15% in just 1 month. Impressive, one investor said, especially considering she's so young. Age doesn't determine competence, Cornell said, his voice sharp. My wife is brilliant. Honestly, anyone who can't see that is an idiot. Summer squeezed his thigh under the table. Easy. Of course, the investor backtracked. No offense, meant Julian spoke up. Although one does wonder about the optics, the CEO of a subsidiary married to the owner's son. Some might say it looks like nepotism. Some might say you're bitter that you're not the favorite anymore, brother. Cornell shot back, the table went tense. Dan's voice was steel. Cornell, Julian, not here, why not here? Cornell's hand found Summer's under the table, gripping tight. You want to air dirty laundry, let's air it all. Let's talk about how you blame me for Lily's death. How you've hated me for 5 years, how you wish I'd died instead of her. Cornell, Dan said, his face pale. That's not, isn't it? Cornell stood and Summer could feel him shaking. You look at me and see a failure, a disappointment. The son who survived when the daughter you actually loved died. That's not true. Then look me in the eye and tell me you don't hate me. Dan opened his mouth, closed it. The silence was damning. Cornell laughed, broken and bitter. That's what I thought. He left. Summer stood immediately. Excuse me. She found Cornell on the restaurant's patio, his hands braced on the railing, his shoulders shaking. Cornell, don't, he said, his voice rough. Don't tell me he doesn't hate me. You saw his face. He can't even deny it. Summer moved to his side. Your father is grieving. He lost a child. That doesn't mean it means exactly what I said. He wishes I died instead. Cornell's hands gripped the railing so hard his knuckles went white. And the worst part, I wish that too. Every single day. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. He finally looked at her and his eyes were devastated. Every time I get on that bike, I'm daring the universe to finish what it started. To take the right Pierce child this time. Summer's heart shattered. You're the right Pierce child. You're here, you're alive, that matters, does it? Cornell's laugh was broken. Because from where I'm standing, I've done nothing but hurt everyone who's ever cared about me. I killed my sister. I destroyed my parents. I'm a walking disaster. Who Summer grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. You listen to me, Cornell Pierce. You are not a disaster. You are not worthless. You made a mistake, a terrible, tragic mistake. But it doesn't define you. You get to choose who you are now, today, on every day. I don't know how to be anything but broken. Then be broken. Be messy and complicated and struggling, but stop punishing yourself for being human. Her voice shook. Because the man I've gotten to know these past weeks, he's smart and kind and so desperate to be seen as something other than a screw-up, but he sabotages himself before anyone else can. You can be so much more, Cornell. I see the potential. I think your dad sees it too. That's why he's so invested in getting you cleaned up. Cornell stared at her. Summer, I love you, she blurted. I know it's too soon and this is supposed to be fake and we barely know each other, but I love you and I need you to stop trying to die because the thought of losing you makes me want to stop breathing. Cornell went absolutely still. You what? I love you, you idiot, despite your best efforts to push me away. Summer, you can't, I'm not. She kissed him, poured everything she felt into it. When she pulled back, Cornell was crying. I love you too, he whispered. God help me, I love you too and I have no idea what to do about it. Start by staying alive, Summer said. For me, can you do that? I don't know if I try, please just try. Cornell pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. Okay, he whispered into her hair. Okay, I'll try. They stood like that for a long time, two broken people holding each other together. Neither of them saw April watching from the door, her phone recording everything. Neither of them knew that in 3 days everything would explode. Summer was working late at the office when her phone rang. Brooks. Miss Lawson, he said, his voice tight. It's Mr. Pierce, Dan Pierce. He's had a heart attack. Cornell is on his way to the hospital. I thought. You should know. Summer's blood went cold. Which hospital? Mount C. Miss Lawson. Cornell shouldn't be alone, not for this. Summer was already grabbing her things. I'm on my way. She found Cornell in the ICU waiting room, packing like a caged animal. His dreads were wild, his piercings catching the harsh hospital lights. He'd clearly thrown on clothes in a rush, jeans, a black hoodie, motorcycle boots. Cornell, she said. He spun toward her and the look on his face broke her heart. He's in surgery, Cornell said, his voice shaking. Massive heart attack. They don't know if he couldn't finish. Summer crossed to him, pulled his too large frame into her arms. Cornell collapsed against her, his whole body shaking with sobs he'd been holding back. She grunted against his weight, but she held on. I never told him, Cornell choked out. That I didn't hate him, that I forgave him for blaming me, that he pulled back, his face wet. What if he dies thinking I hate him as much as he hates me? He doesn't hate you, you don't know that. Yes, I do. Summer cupped his face. A parent who hates their child doesn't spend 8 months finding them the perfect wife. Doesn't care enough to blackmail them into marriage to save them from self-destruction. If he didn't love you, if he no longer cared, trust me, he won't bat an eyelash about how you're living your life. Your father loves you, Cornell. He's just terrible at showing it. What if it's too late? Then we make sure it's not. Summer took his hand, led him toward the ICU doors. Come on. They had to wait 2 more hours before Dan was out of surgery and stable enough for visitors. The doctor's prognosis was cautiously optimistic. Dan would survive, but recovery would take months. When they finally let Cornell in to see him, Summer stayed in the doorway, giving them privacy. Dan lay in the hospital bed, looking smaller and older than she'd ever seen him. Tubes and monitors everywhere. His eyes were closed. Cornell stood at his father's bedside, his hands shaking. Dad, he said, his voice breaking. I don't know if you can hear me, but I need to say this in case. He couldn't continue. Summer moved to his side, took his hand. Cornell squeezed it like a lifeline. I don't hate you, Cornell said, tears streaming down his face. I know you think I do. I know I've acted like it, but I don't. I never did. I was just so angry at myself, at the universe, at you for blaming me when I already blamed myself more than you ever could. He wiped his eyes roughly. You're right. Lily's death wasn't your fault. It wasn't Mom's fault. It was mine, and I've been punishing myself every day since. Racing, smoking, self-destructing. All of it was because I couldn't forgive myself for surviving when she didn't. His voice dropped to a whisper. But Summer, she's teaching me that maybe I don't have to keep punishing myself. That maybe I can choose to live instead of just existing. Summer's heart broke. So I need you to wake up, Cornell continued, his voice raw. Because I want to try, I want to be better, I want to be the son you deserve, but I need you here to see it. Please, Dad, please don't leave me. Not when I'm finally ready to stop running. He broke down completely, collapsing into the chair beside the bed, his head in his hands. Summer wrapped her arms around him from behind, holding him while he shattered, and realized with terrifying clarity that she couldn't destroy this family. Not when it would destroy Cornell, not when she loved him. Her revenge would have to wait. Maybe forever, because some things were more important than justice, like love. If Cornell's confession just destroyed your heart, drop a broken heart emoji in the comments. And if you think Summer's about to make a huge mistake choosing love over revenge, I comment Summer think this through. Subscribe because next part is bringing April's betrayal, Julian's schemes and Summer's final choice between revenge and the man she loves. Dan Pierce opened his eyes 3 days after his heart attack. Cornell was asleep in the chair beside his bed, his head resting on his crossed arms on the mattress, one hand holding his father's. His dreads fell forward, hiding his face, his back rising and falling with deep, exhausted breaths. Summer stood in the doorway with coffee she'd bought from the hospital cafeteria. Terrible, but it was 4:00 a.m. and nothing else was open. She'd sent Cornell home twice, both times he'd come back within an hour, unable to stay away. Dan's eyes found hers. He looked at his sleeping son, then back at Summer, managed a small smile. "You did this," he mouthed. "I'm too weak to speak aloud." Summer shook her head, moved closer. "He did it himself," she whispered. "I just reminded him he was worth saving." Dan's hand tightened on Cornell's, his eyes filled with tears. Cornell stirred, his head lifting. When he saw his father's open eyes, he went absolutely still. "Dad," his voice cracked. "Hey, son," Dan rasped. Cornell broke down, dropped his head onto his father's hand and sobbed like a child. Dan's other hand, the one not hooked to IVs, came up to rest on Cornell's head, fingers tangling gently in his dreads. "I don't hate you, I never hated you. I didn't know how to help you, how to reach you. I'm sorry," Cornell choked out. "I'm so sorry for everything, for Lily, for being such a screw-up, for stop." Dan's voice was firm despite its weakness. "It was an accident, a terrible, tragic accident, and I blamed you because it was easier than blaming the universe. Easier than accepting that sometimes horrible things just happen." His voice broke. "But I was wrong, and I'm sorry I made you carry that guilt alone." Summer quietly backed out of the room, giving them privacy for this moment they'd needed for 5 years. She found Brooks in the waiting room, his eyes red from his own vigil. "He's awake," Summer said. Brooks sagged with relief. "Thank God." And Cornell finally getting the conversation he's needed since Lily died. Brooks studied her face. "You love him, it's not just the contract anymore." Summer didn't see the point in lying. "No, it's not just the contract. Does he know about your parents, about why you really came to Pierce Empire?" Summer's blood went cold. "How do you have been with the Pierce family for 20 years, Miss Lawson? I know things, including that your parents, Michael and Diana Lawson, died in the Riverside Towers collapse 5 years ago. The towers built by Morrison Construction, a subsidiary of Pierce Empire." Brooks's eyes were sad but understanding. "I know Dan approved cost-cutting measures that led to faulty construction, and I know you've been gathering evidence." Summer couldn't breathe. "Are you going to tell Cornell? That's not my place." Brooks stood, his expression gentle. "But secrets have a way of coming out, Miss Summer, especially when people like Julian Pierce go digging, and he has been digging into you, into your background, into everything. Julian knows. I don't know what he knows, but I know he's looking. And I know he wants Cornell out of the company permanently." Brooks put a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever you're planning to do with that evidence, do it soon before someone else does it for you. And tell Cornell yourself. Don't let him hear it from someone who will weaponize it." He left Summer standing in the waiting room, her coffee going cold in her hands, dread settling in her stomach like lead. The next morning brought news that spread through Pierce Empire like wildfire. Dan Pierce was awake and recovering, but he'd be out of commission for at least 3 months. In his absence, the board had voted. Julian Pierce would serve as acting CEO. Summer was in her office when she heard reviewing the quarterly projections that showed Pierce Digital's revenue up 23% since she'd taken over. Her phone rang. "Cornell, did you hear?" His voice was tight about Julian. "Yes, my father's been awake for 12 hours and my brother's already making power plays." The bitterness in Cornell's voice was sharp enough to cut. "He's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow to assess the leadership structure in light of recent events." Summer's stomach dropped. "He's going after your position. He's going after both our positions." "Summer, Julian's been building a case. He has photos, testimony, evidence of every meeting I've sabotaged, every rule I've broken. He's going to argue I'm unfit for any leadership role. We'll fight it. There's more." Cornell's voice went quiet. "He has photos of us together, kissing, being intimate. He's going to argue our marriage is real, not just the business arrangement the board approved, which means it violates the company's anti-nepotism policy." "That's ridiculous." The board knew we were married when they approved my position. They approved a business marriage, a professional arrangement, not Cornell trailed off, not what we actually have. Summer's mind raced, so we deny it, say the photos are staged or taken out of context and lie to the board. Summer, I've done a lot of terrible things, but I won't lie about you, about us. I won't pretend what we have isn't real just to keep Julian happy. Something warm and terrifying bloomed in Summer's chest. Cornell, I have to go. Dad's awake and wants to talk strategy. But Summer, whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know I don't regret any of this. The marriage, the contract falling for you, none of it. He hung up before she could respond. Summer sat in her office staring at her phone, trying to ignore the voice in her head, screaming that she should come clean about everything before it was too late. But how could she? How could she tell Cornell that she'd married him to destroy his family? That every moment of their early relationship had been built on lies and revenge, that she'd been gathering evidence to prove his father was responsible for her parents' deaths. The evidence that was currently sitting in an encrypted folder on her laptop waiting to be used. Summer opened the folder, staring at the damning emails, the financial records, the proof of Dan Pierce's negligence. She could release it, send it to the authorities, get justice for her parents, but it would destroy Dan, destroy the company, destroy Cornell's family right when they were finally healing, destroy Cornell. Summer's finger hovered over the delete button, then her office door burst open. Nadia stood there, her usually calm face panicked. Summer, we have a problem, a big one. Nadia closed the office door, locked it, and turned to Summer with terror in her eyes. Someone hacked your cloud storage. Nadia said all the research files, the evidence on Dan Pierce, the construction company negligence, everything. Summer's world tilted. When? Sometime in the last 48 hours. I only caught it because I have monitoring software running. Whoever did this was professional. They didn't just copy the files, they left a trace so I'd know they'd been there. Who would? Summer stopped. Julian, that's my guess. He's been investigating you. This would give him everything he needs to. Summer's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Unknown, nice research, very thorough. Shame you didn't get to use it yourself. Check your email. Summer's hands shook as she opened her email. The message was from Julian's personal account. Subject line, the truth about Summer Lawson. Summer, impressive detective work on my father's construction company negligence. The evidence is quite damning. I'm sure the authorities would be very interested. However, I'm a reasonable man. I'm willing to keep your little revenge plot quiet, along with the fact that you married my brother under false pretenses for the sole purpose of destroying our family. In exchange, I want 3 things. 1. Your resignation as CEO of Pierce Digital effective immediately. 2. Your public statement that your marriage to Cornell was fraudulent and based on manipulation. 3. Your testimony to the board that Cornell is unstable and unfit for any leadership position. You have until the board meeting tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. to decide. Refuse and I'll send everything to Cornell myself. I wonder how he'll feel knowing the woman he loves only married him to destroy his family. Your move, Julian. Summer couldn't breathe. Nadia read over her shoulder. Oh my God, Summer, what are you going to do? I don't know. Summer's voice was barely a whisper. If I do what he wants, I destroy Cornell anyway. But if I don't, Cornell finds out from Julian. Finds out you've been lying to him this whole time. Summer pressed her hands to her face. I have to tell him myself, before Julian does. Are you sure I can't let him hear it from Julian? He deserves better than that. Summer grabbed her bag. I need to go. Her phone rang. Cornell, Summer answered with shaking hands. Hey, his voice was warm, happy, so different from the broken man she'd met 6 weeks ago. I'm leaving the hospital, want to grab dinner, there's this Thai place you mentioned once. And I thought, Cornell, I need to talk to you, it's important. His tone shifted immediately. What's wrong? Not over the phone, can you meet me at home? I'm on my way. Summer hung up, her heart in her throat. Good luck, Nadia said quietly. For what it's worth, I think he loves you enough to forgive you eventually. Summer wasn't so sure. The penthouse felt like a stranger's home when Summer walked in 40 minutes later. All the little changes Cornell had made over the past weeks were visible everywhere. The expensive coffee maker he'd bought because she loved good coffee. The blankets on the couch because she was always cold. The photos he'd started putting up trying to make space feel like more than just a bachelor pad, evidence of a man falling in love. The door opened. Cornell walked in. His dreads pulled back in a bun, his leather jacket slung over one shoulder, a bag of Thai takeout in his other hand. He smiled when he saw her. The real smile, the one she'd worked so hard to earn. "Hey, beautiful, I know you said we needed to talk, but I figured we could at least eat while He stopped, reading her expression. "What's wrong? You look like someone died." Summer forced herself to breathe. "We need to talk. Sit down." Cornell sat down the food, his smile fading. "Summer, you're scaring me. What happened? I need to tell you something about why I really came to Pierce Empire, about why I agreed to marry you." Cornell went very still. "Okay." Summer pulled out her laptop, opened the evidence folder. "My parents didn't just die in a building collapse. They died in the Riverside Towers collapse 5 years ago." She watched Cornell's face as comprehension dawned. "Riverside Towers? That was Morrison Construction, one of our subsidiaries." "Yes," Summer's voice shook. "Your father approved cost-cutting measures, cheap materials, skipped safety inspections. He knew those buildings were unsafe, and he approved them anyway to increase profit margins." She turned the laptop so Cornell could see the emails, the financial records, the damning paper trail. "My parents died because your father chose money over safety." Cornell stared at the screen, his face going pale. "How long have you known?" "5 years, since I was 20. I've been gathering evidence ever since. And the marriage," his voice was carefully controlled. Too controlled. Was that part of the plan? Summer's throat tightened. "When your father offered me the job, the marriage contract, I saw an opportunity, a way to get close to the family, to access files I couldn't get otherwise, to find proof." Her voice broke. "So yes, at first marrying you was about revenge." At first, Cornell's dark eyes were unreadable. "And now I love you. Now the thought of destroying your family makes me sick. Now I've been trying to figure out how to choose between justice for my parents and what Summer." "Me?" Cornell stood, his hands clenched into fists. "You've been lying to me from day one. Everything, the job, the marriage, all of it was about getting revenge on my family." "It was, but it's not anymore. How am I supposed to believe that?" His voice rose raw with pain. "How am I supposed to believe anything you say? You looked me in the eye and said you loved me. Was that a lie too, part of the plan?" "No." Summer stood, reaching for him. "Cornell, please, I know how this looks," but he stepped back away from her touch. "Do you know what the worst part is? I told you things I've never told anyone. About Lily, about wanting to die, about my nightmares. I let you see me completely broken because I thought." His voice cracked. "I thought you actually cared. I do care. I love you. You love me." Cornell's laugh was bitter, broken. "How can you love the son of the man that caused your parents to stop existing? That's not fair." "Fair?" Cornell's eyes blazed. "You want to talk about fair? My parents died because your father's negligence. That's not fair. You lied to me for weeks. That's not fair. I fell in love with someone who was using me. That's not." He stopped, pressing his hands to his face. "I can't do this. I can't be in the same room with you right now." He grabbed his jacket. "Where are you going?" Summer asked, panic rising. "I don't know. Anywhere that isn't here. I need to think." He stopped at the door, his back to her. "Did Julian contact you? Figure out the evidence?" Summer's silence was answer enough. "Right, that's why you're confessing, not because you're sorry, but because he's probably blackmailing you with it now, knowing him." Cornell's voice went flat. "So my brother knows, which means this is going to come out at the board meeting tomorrow." "Perfect, just perfect." "Cornell, please let me explain." "Explain what, Summer?" He turned, and the look on his face broke her heart. "You want to destroy my father? Fine, release the evidence, send him to prison, get your justice, but don't pretend you love me. Don't insult me by pretending any of this was real for you. It was real. It is real. Prove it." The challenge hung between them. "Choose right now, me or your revenge, because you can't have both." Summer opened her mouth, closed it, because how could she choose? How could she abandon justice for her parents, even for love? But how could she destroy the man she loved? Cornell saw her hesitation. Something died in his eyes. "That's what I thought," he said quietly. Then he left. Summer stood in the empty penthouse, surrounded by all the evidence of their relationship. The coffee maker, the blankets, the photos, and collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. She'd lost him, and she had no idea how to get him back. The buzz of her phone pulled Summer from her tears an hour later. "Brooks, Miss Summer, you need to see this." The attached link led to a private video uploaded to a file-sharing site. Summer clicked it with trembling hands. The video showed her and Cornell at the restaurant. The night she'd told him she loved him. Their entire conversation, his confession about racing to die, but her declaration of love, their kiss, all recorded April. The video had been edited, cut to make it look like Summer was seducing him, manipulating his vulnerability. And the caption, "The Truth About Summer." Lawson, how a gold digger seduced a broken man. Summer's phone rang immediately. Unknown number. She answered. "Hello, impressive performance." Julian's voice was smooth, satisfied. "April really captured your manipulation perfectly. That video has already been sent to every board member. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know exactly what kind of person you are. You bastard, I gave you a choice, Summer. You didn't take it. So now the whole world gets to see the truth." Julian paused. "Although I have to admit, I'm curious. Did you ever actually love my brother, or was it all just part of the act?" "Go to hell, Julian. See you at the board meeting, Summer. Should be quite a show." He hung up. Summer stared at her phone, rage and despair roaring in her chest. Then determination set in. Julian wanted to destroy her. Fine, but she'd make sure he didn't take Cornell down with her. She grabbed her laptop and started working. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 9:00 a.m. in Pierce Tower's main conference room. Summer arrived at 8:45, dressed in her best suit, her short curly hair perfectly styled, her game face firmly in place. Every board member stared at her with varying degrees of disgust and disappointment as she walked in. They'd all seen the video. Julian sat at the head of the table, Dan's usual seat looking smug. April sat beside him, her smile vicious. Cornell's seat was empty. "Miss Lawson," Julian said pleasantly. "Not so good of you to join us. We weren't sure you'd have the nerve to show your face." "Where's Cornell?" Summer asked, ignoring him. "My brother won't be joining us. He's at the hospital with our father, where he belongs, away from manipulative gold diggers." Summer's hands clenched, but she kept her voice level. "Shall we begin?" "Gladly." Julian stood, clicking a remote. The video of her and Cornell appeared on the screen. "Gentlemen, I think this speaks for itself. Ms. Lawson deliberately targeted my emotionally vulnerable brother, seduced him and manipulated him, all as part of a revenge plot against our family." He clicked again. Summer's evidence folder appeared. The emails, the financial records, everything. "She's been gathering evidence to destroy Pierce Empire, to destroy my father, and using her marriage to my brother as cover to access confidential files and build a case against us." The board members murmured, their expressions hardening. Furthermore, Julian continued, "I move that we immediately terminate Miss Lawson's position as CEO of Pierce Digital, dissolve her marriage contract with Cornell on grounds of fraud, and pursue legal action for corporate espionage." "Seconded," April said immediately. "Wait," Summer stood, her voice cutting through the room. "I have something to say. I don't think Julian started. You wanted the truth, Julian. Fine, let's tell them everything." Summer pulled out her own laptop, connecting it to the screen. "Yes, I married Cornell as part of a revenge plot. Yes, I gathered evidence against Dan Pierce, but let's talk about why." She clicked. Photos of her parents appeared. At young, smiling, alive. "Michael and Diana Lawson, my parents, they died 5 years ago in the Riverside Towers collapse. The collapse that happened because Dan Pierce approved cost-cutting measures that violated safety codes because he chose profit over human lives." The room went silent. Summer clicked again. "Maury." Emails appeared, but these weren't from her folder. These were new. "These are emails I found in the company server last night. Emails between Julian Pierce and Morrison Constructions, former CEO. Emails showing that Julian knew about the safety violations, that he approved them alongside his father, that he's been covering it up for 5 years to protect the company." Julian's face went white. "That's not where did you? You're not the only one who can hack cloud storage, Julian." Summer's voice was steel. You want to destroy me? Fine, but I'm not going down alone, and I'm not letting you use my revenge plot to cover up your own crimes." She clicked again. More evidence appeared. Financial records showing Julian embezzling company funds, backdoor deals with competitors, insider trading. "I spent the last 12 hours gathering everything I could find on you, Julian. Every dirty deal, every illegal transaction, every crime you've committed in the name of Pierce Empire. You want to call me a gold digger, a manipulator? Look in the mirror." The board members were staring at Julian now, their expressions shocked. "This is ridiculous," Julian sputtered. "She's lying. She fabricated." "I have the original server logs to prove authenticity," Summer interrupted. "And I've already sent copies to the SEC, the FBI, and every major news outlet in the city. Whether you fire me or not, Julian, you're done." The conference room doors burst open. Cornell stood there breathing hard like he'd run all the way. From the elevator, his dreads were loose, his clothes rumpled, his piercings glinting under the fluorescent lights. His eyes found Summers immediately. "I'm sorry I'm late," Cornell said, his voice rough. "Had to stop by the hospital. Dad wanted me to give the board a message." He pulled out an envelope, handed it to the board secretary. The woman read it, her eyes widening. "It's a letter from Dan Pierce. He's naming Cornell as acting CEO in his absence, effective immediately." Julian shot to his feet. "That's not legally binding. He's on medication, he's not in his right mind, it's legally binding," Cornell said coldly. "Need Dad's lawyer was present. Everything's proper, which means, brother, your little power play is over." He looked at the board members. "My father also wants me to address the allegations against him regarding the Riverside Towers collapse." Summers' breath caught. Cornell's eyes met hers, held. Something passed between them, pain, understanding, a question she couldn't answer. Then he looked away. "5 years ago my father made decisions that led to people's deaths. Summer Lawson's parents among them. He cut corners to save money. He ignored safety protocols, and people died because of it." Cornell's voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. "Those decisions were wrong, criminal, and they deserve consequences." "Cornell, what are you?" Julian started. "I'm saying my father should be held accountable. Summer's evidence should be submitted to the authorities. An investigation should be opened." Cornell's jaw tightened. "My father agrees. He's willing to cooperate fully, to accept whatever punishment the law demands." The room exploded in shocked murmurs. Cornell held up a hand for silence. "However, Summer's evidence also shows that Julian was complicit, that he knew about the safety violations and approved them, that he's been embezzling funds and engaging in insider trading for years." His voice went cold. "Which means, Julian, while you've been busy trying to destroy me and my wife, you've actually destroyed yourself." "Your wife?" Julian's laugh was brittle. "You heard her confession. She used you. She never loved you. It was all an act." "Maybe it was," Cornell said quietly, "or maybe people can change. Maybe revenge can turn into something else. Maybe love can grow even in the worst circumstances." He looked at Summer again. "I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. But what I do know is that Summer Lawson has more integrity in her little finger than you have in your entire body. She's a liar." April shrieked. "She manipulated you. That video proves you're a stalker who violated our privacy," Cornell shot back. "And that you're working with my brother to sabotage this company. Security is already reviewing the footage of you planting that recording device. Expect criminal charges." April's face went pale. "This meeting is over," Cornell said to the board. "Julian Pierce is hereby removed from all positions at Pierce Empire pending criminal investigation. April Cross is banned from all company property. Odd and Summer Lawson." He paused, his eyes meeting hers one more time. "Summer Lawson remains CEO of Pierce Digital unless she chooses to resign." "Cornell, you can't." Julian started. "I can and I did. Security will escort you out, both of you." 2 massive security guards appeared as if summoned. Julian and April were removed from the conference room, their protests fading. Down the hallway, the board members sat in stunned silence. Cornell addressed them calmly, professionally. "I know this is a lot to process. My assistant will schedule individual meetings to discuss the transition. For now, this meeting is adjourned." The board members filed out slowly, shooting curious glances between Cornell and Summer. Finally, they were alone. Summer stood on one side of the conference table. Cornell stood on the other. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. "You didn't have to do that," Summer said finally, her voice shaky. She felt stripped of all her composure. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because you're good at your job. The company needs you." Cornell's voice was carefully neutral. "And because despite everything you were right about my father, about Julian, they needed to face consequences." "Cornell, I saw you hesitate." Summer. "Last night when I asked you to choose between me and your revenge," his dark eyes held pain. "You couldn't do it. You couldn't choose me because it's not that simple. You were asking me to abandon justice for my parents. I was asking if you loved me enough to find another way. A way that didn't involve lies and manipulation. A way we could face together." Cornell's voice broke slightly. "But you couldn't trust me. Even after everything, you couldn't trust me enough to tell me the truth before I had to hear it from Julian." Summer's eyes filled with tears. I was scared. I was scared you'd hate me, that you'd choose your family over me. Of course I'd choose my family, they're my family. Cornell moved around the table slowly. But Summer, you are becoming my family too, and you didn't trust me enough to see that. I trust you now, I love you now. Cornell, please. Summer reached for him. He stepped back. I can't, not right now. I need time. I need space to figure out what was real and what was manipulation. What I actually feel versus what you made me feel. I never made you feel anything. Everything between us was real. Was it? Cornell's voice was quiet. Or did you just get so deep into the role that you started believing your own lies? That's not. I would never. I don't know what you would or wouldn't do anymore, Summer. That's the problem. He moved toward the door. You can stay in the penthouse until you find your own place. I'll stay at a hotel. You're kicking me out. I'm giving us both space. Cornell stopped at the door, his back to her. For what it's worth, I believe that you believe you love me, but I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if I can be with someone who kept that kind of secret, who lied to me for weeks while I was falling apart and putting myself back together. Cornell, please, I need time. Summer, please respect that. He left. Summer stood alone in the conference room, surrounded by evidence of her revenge plot and her destroyed marriage. Anjan realized she'd won. She'd brought down the people responsible for her parents' deaths. She'd exposed Julian's crimes. She'd gotten justice. But she'd lost the one thing that had begun to matter more than anything. She'd lost Cornell. 3 weeks passed like a nightmare. Summer threw herself into work, pushing Pierce Digital's expansion into new markets, increasing revenue by 30%, proving she deserved her position based on merit alone. She moved into a modest apartment in Brooklyn, taking only what was hers, leaving behind all the little gifts Cornell had given her. She submitted her evidence to the authorities. Dan Pierce was formally charged with criminal negligence. He pleaded guilty, accepted a plea deal, 3 years in prison, company assets seized to compensate the families of the Riverside Towers victims. Julian Pierce was charged with embezzlement, fraud and insider trading. His trial was scheduled for 6 months out. April Cross was charged with corporate espionage and illegal surveillance. She'd already fled the country. Summer should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt hollow. She hadn't seen Cornell since the board meeting. He was running Pierce Empire now, working 18-hour days rebuilding the company's reputation. Brooks kept her updated without being asked. Cornell had stopped racing, hadn't touched a cigarette, was attending therapy 3 times a week and sleeping through the night without nightmares. He was getting better without her. Summer told herself that was good, that he deserved to heal, that she'd done too much damage for them to ever recover. But God, she missed him. One night she found herself at the street racing circuit in Brooklyn, the place where Cornell used to race every weekend. She watched the races, trying to understand what he'd found there. The speed, the danger, the flirtation with death. He doesn't come here anymore. Summer turned to find a woman in her 30s covered in tattoos holding a helmet. You're Summer Lawson. The woman said it wasn't a question. Cornell's wife. How did you? He talked about you before, said you were the only person who ever made him want to stop running. The woman extended her hand. I'm Raven. I raced with Cornell before. Summer shook her hand. He quit 2 weeks ago, sold his bikes, said he didn't need them anymore, that he'd found better reasons to stay alive. Raven studied Summer with sharp eyes. You broke his heart. I know, he loves you anyway, that's what kills him. He wants to hate you, wants to write you off as a liar and a manipulator. But he can't because he knows you, the real you, and he loves that person. Summer's throat tightened. It doesn't matter. I destroyed his trust. That's not something you can come back from, isn't it? Raven smiled slightly. Cornell spent 5 years destroying himself because he couldn't forgive himself for a mistake. You think he doesn't understand making terrible choices out of pain? You think he doesn't get trying to hurt the people responsible even when it hurts you more? That's different. He didn't lie to the people he loved, didn't he? He lied to everyone who cared about him, said he was fine when he was dying inside, said he didn't need help when he was drowning. Oz pushed away anyone who tried to save him. Raven shrugged. Sounds like lying to me. Summer didn't know what to say to that. You want advice? Raven asked. Fight for him. He spent his whole life believing he's not worth fighting for. Prove him wrong. And so Summer started to fight. She sent Cornell an email, then another, then one every day for a week. She didn't make excuses. Didn't try to justify her lies, just told him the truth about her parents, about the grief that had consumed her. About how revenge had been the only thing keeping her going, about how meeting him had changed everything. "I know you don't believe me," she wrote in one email. "I know you think I manipulated you, but Cornell, you can't manipulate someone into being brave, into choosing life over death, into believing they're worth saving. Everything you became over these past weeks, that was you, not me. I just reminded you who you already were underneath all the pain. I love you, not the broken boy I thought I could fix, not the heir to the company I wanted to destroy. I love the man who quit smoking because it bothered me, who bought me coffee because he noticed how I took it, who held me while I cried about my parents even though talking about parents hurt him too. I love the man who stood up to his father, who chose accountability over protecting his family name, who defended me even when I didn't deserve it. I love you and I'm sorry, and I understand if you can't forgive me, but I'm not giving up on us because you taught me that love is worth fighting for, even when it's messy and complicated and built on the worst possible foundation, especially then." The emails went unanswered, but Summer noticed small things. The read receipts showed he was opening them. And one day Brooks mentioned casually that Cornell had asked what Summer's favorite flowers were. Hope, fragile and terrifying, bloomed in Summer's chest. The knock on Summer's apartment door came at 1:00 p.m. on a Thursday, 6 weeks after the board meeting. Summer opened it to find Cornell standing there. He looked different, healthier. His dreads were freshly done, his piercings polished, his clothes clean and pressed. No cigarettes, no smell of smoke. His eyes were clear, but they were also sad. "Hi," he said. "Hi." Summer's heart was racing. "Do you want to come in?" Cornell nodded, stepping into her modest apartment. His eyes swept over the space. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, furniture from IKEA, such a stark contrast to the penthouse. "You didn't have to move here," he said. "The penthouse is paid for. You could have. I needed my own space to figure things out." They stood in awkward silence. Finally, Cornell spoke. "I read your emails, all of them." Summer's breath caught, and I don't know what to do with them. Cornell ran a hand over his dreads. "Part of me wants to forgive you. I wants to understand that you were in pain, that you made mistakes, that you fell in love despite your plans. But I keep coming back to the lies, Summer. Not the revenge plot. I actually get that. If someone killed my parents, I'd want justice too. But you looked me in the eye every day and lied. When I was falling apart, when I was telling you my darkest secrets, you were lying. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, are you?" Cornell's eyes held hers. "Or are you just sorry you got caught?" "I'm sorry I hurt you, that's all I've ever been sorry about." Summer stepped closer. "Cornell, I was wrong about everything. I thought revenge would make me feel better, make the grief stop, but it didn't. You know what did? Loving you, being loved by you, that's what healed me. Summer, I'm not asking you to forgive me, and I'm not even asking you to take me back. I just need you to know what we had was real. My love for you was real, is real." Her voice broke. "And I will spend the rest of my life regretting that I let my for revenge almost destroy the best thing that ever happened to me." Cornell stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, "My therapist says I need to forgive myself before I can forgive anyone else." "Okay, and that holding on to anger and hurt only destroys the person holding it. That sounds like good advice. She also says that love built on secrets and lies can still become real if both people are willing to rebuild it on truth and trust." Cornell stepped closer. "Are you willing to do that, Summer, to rebuild, to start over, but this time with honesty?" Summer's heart soared. "Yes, God, yes, it won't be easy. I am still angry, I'm still hurt, I know, but there are also days where I can't breathe without you, where I miss you so much it physically hurts, where I'd rather be angry with you than happy without you." His voice dropped. "And I think that means something." "What does it mean?" Cornell reached out, his hand cupping her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. "It means I really love you and I'm willing to try again." "If you are," Summer's eyes filled with tears, "I'm willing to try again." "Good." Cornell leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. "Because I have conditions. Name them. No more secrets. We talk about everything. The hard stuff, the painful stuff, all of it done, and you go to therapy with me, and because we both have trauma to work through, and I'm not doing this unless we do it right." "Done." Cornell pulled back slightly, his grey eyes searching hers. "You really love me despite everything. Despite my family, my past, my mess. I love you because of it, because you're you, messy and complicated and perfectly imperfect." Summer smiled through her tears, and I'm going to spend the rest of our time proving that to you, however long it takes, the rest of our time. Cornell's lip curved. That sounds like you're planning to stick around. If you'll have me, I'll have you. He kissed her then. Soft and gentle and full of promise. I'll always have you, Summer Lawson and Pierce, even when I'm mad at you, even when you drive me crazy, even when we're fighting. They kissed again, deeper this time when they finally pulled apart, but Cornell smiled, that real smile that made him look years younger, so he said, want to get some coffee? I know this place that makes it exactly how you like it. Summer laughed, the sound lighter than she'd felt in weeks. I'd love that. They walked out of her apartment hand in hand. It wouldn't be easy. There would be hard days ahead, therapy sessions, difficult conversations, moments of doubt. But they'd face it together because some love was worth fighting for, even when it started with lies. Especially then. 6 months later, Dan Pierce was released from prison on good behavior, having served his time and paid his debt to society. He came home to find his company restructured, his sons working together instead of against each other, and a daughter-in-law who'd forgiven him. I'm sorry, Dan said to Summer at their first family dinner, for the decisions I made for your parents, for the pain I caused. I know, Summer said, and I forgive you, not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to hate was destroying me. And I'd rather build something new than stay trapped in the past. Cornell squeezed her hand under the table. They'd been living together again for 3 months, taking it slow, rebuilding trust, learning each all over again, this time with honesty. Suddenly Cornell stood, his dreads pulled back, his piercings glinting, his hands still holding Summer's. A year ago I was a mess. Self-destructive, suicidal, convinced I didn't deserve love or happiness. I pushed everyone away. I hurt everyone who tried to help me. He looked at his father, including you, Dad, and I'm sorry for that. Dan's eyes were wet. I'm sorry too, son. But then this stubborn, brilliant, infuriating woman showed up in my life. And she saw past all my walls. She called out she made me want to be better. Cornell looked down at Summer. He pulled something from his pocket. A ring. Summer's breath stopped. I know we're already legally married, Cornell said, dropping to one knee beside her chair, but that was a contract, a business deal. This time I want it to be real. I want to marry you, Summer Lawson. Not because my father arranged it, not because of revenge or business or any reason except that I love you. I love your strength, your intelligence, your stubbornness. Tears streamed down Summer's face. Will you marry me? Cornell asked. For real this time? Yes, Summer sobbed. Yes, yes, and 1,000 times, yes. Cornell slipped the ring on her finger, a simple band with an inscription inside, truth, trust together. Then he kissed her while their family cheered, and Summer realized that sometimes the worst beginnings led to the best endings. Sometimes choosing truth over revenge was the greatest victory, and sometimes, just sometimes, broken people could heal each other if they were brave enough to try. The greatest revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you, it's refusing to let their actions destroy you. And real strength isn't about never making mistakes. It's about owning them, learning from them, and becoming better because of them. If this ending had you crying happy tears, drop crying emoji in the comments. Comment Summer and Cornell forever if you're in love with this couple, and subscribe for more stories about people finding love in impossible places. Thank you for being here. You're part of this journey.